How do you encourage participation from a silent class?
I find if I break students into small groups of 4 and give them a topic that if they don't like to speak in the large group, they will speak in the small group, and then there are other groups that they like to speak in the large group. You have to just go with whatever seems to work for that group, but that's one way of doing it, is breaking them into smaller groups so they're more comfortable and they feel safer. That's the other thing, is if often silence means students are just processing something, and I'm quite comfortable with silence, and so I don't jump in there and try and answer the question or ask it in a different way in case they didn't get it. I just sort of let it happen, and if you let it happen, it will just unfold. Yeah.
In order to try and encourage participation from a silent class, I'd also use small group activities. So, because in a smaller group they're more comfortable, and then have them assign somebody to be the spokesperson to report to the larger group. So whoever that individual is going to be has a chance to think about it and get themselves geared up for it. If participation in a class is really important, then I would probably have some marks assigned to it, so there is some, it recognizes its value, and it would then encourage them. But I think as well, we can recognize that participation can take many forms. It doesn't just have to be speaking out loud in front of the whole class. It could be something related to, well, small group stuff, but email, online, peer assistance, any number of ways that people can be active participants in the class. I guess one of the other things to add here is it could be a cultural thing, and that's something that has come up where some individuals are just not comfortable speaking in a large class. And so acknowledging that and recognizing that, not forcing them to do something that's uncomfortable, but finding other ways to provide for meaningful participation, like the small group stuff.
Well, I like a class that's noisier. I don't like a silent class. I just feel uncomfortable with that. So if I'm asking questions and students aren't responding, so I'm standing and waiting, nothing is happening, then what I'll do is I'll break up and maybe I'll assign questions to small groups again, because I find students will talk more easily in a small group first, and then maybe 1 or 2 people from each group can offer what the whole group has talked about to the rest of the class, and then we'll come back together as a group. And usually what I find is when we come back as a group, they've got the habit of talking now, and so they'll be more forthcoming with the whole group. But that can happen early in a course where no one really knows each other and no one's really comfortable in being the one to speak out when the class is quiet. So a small group situation usually helps with that kind of thing.
The Japanese have this concept of in any group there's a mood maker, and that's the person that kind of gets everyone involved and tells jokes. And once in a while, the Japanese would say once in a while a group forms that doesn't have a mood maker, doesn't have somebody in it that keeps people animated. So I think I learned a lot from that concept, because I think that when there's a really silent class, it's often because there isn't that one or those 2 really outgoing people that kind of break the ice and make it okay for everybody else to speak out and say silly things. So I think in the most extreme example where I had a class that just didn't seem to wake up and seemed very, very reticent, I had a party, like not in class, actually did some outside activities, and that seemed to kind of warm the group up. They seemed to feel more comfortable then with each other. I wouldn't usually do that. I would do as Karen does, have small group activities, and often I find that makes people comfortable to then speak in the large group. So there are lots of what I call warmer activities to warm up a group. So they might be quizzes or contests, or if they also involve students being very physical, and if they know that this is only going to be for a short time, because sometimes they can think this is kind of silly, what am I doing playing games in the class? But if it's physical, it gets them out of themselves, so they have to run to the front of the class and do something and run back. That often will warm up the class, and they'll be much more outgoing after that.
Or even competitions among groups where students have to try and come up with a list of 5 things from the lecture, and who can come up with them quickest or anything like that.